many of these comments, we take them more seriously than they deserve. They are made probably without the greatest of thought. I'm not convinced. In fact, I'm not only not convinced, I'm pretty sure that if one works 90 hours a week, ideas will probably suffer, quality will probably suffer, and you'll actually end up with less than you would like. I think for the great bulk of people in the world, it's very important to have time off. It's very important to have time off to recharge, to come back refreshed, etc. And I think for many people, it's very important to have time off to do the things that they really want to do that may not be work connected.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. The chairman of Larsen and Toubro has told his employees that he wishes he could make them work 90 hours a week, which means 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. He's also said of Sundays, what do you do sitting at home? How long can you stare at your wife? How long can wives stare at their husbands? So today we ask, does India need a new work ethic? Is leisure time a waste of time? And does the progress of the nation depend upon ceaseless slog and endless hard work? Or is the chairman of Larsen and Toubro terribly mistaken? Joining me to address this issue is the Co-Chairman of Forbes Marshall and a former president of the Confederation of Indian Industry, Naushad Forbes. Mr. Forbes, last week in a video, the chairman of L&T, Subrahmanyan, said to his employees, and I'm quoting him, I regret I am not able to make you work on Sundays, to be honest. If I can make you work on Sundays, I will be more happy because I work on Sundays also. And then he pointedly added, if you have got to be on top of the world, you have to work 90 hours a week, which is, as I said, 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. So let me start by asking, how do you respond to that?
So Karan, I think many of these comments, we take them more seriously than they deserve. They are made probably without the greatest of thought. They are made as a relatively a comment maybe in a particular context, and I wouldn't depend so strongly on what each person says. And one person will say 70 hours, someone will say 90 hours. I don't take it that seriously. You would have seen an interview that Anand Mahindra gave quite recently, where he spoke, among other things, about this as well. And I agree with what he said, which is that it's all actually about quality and not quantity. What you want is the full engagement of people's heads. We increasingly work much more with our heads than our hands. And as such, it's all about quality. It's all about the quality of thought, the quality of decision making, the ideas that we come up with. And I'm not convinced. In fact, I'm not only not convinced, I'm pretty sure that if one works 90 hours a week, ideas will probably suffer, quality will probably suffer, and you'll actually end up with less than you would like.
You began by saying that many of these comments, and I'm quoting you, are made without the greatest of thought. You're saying this is a thoughtless comment. Don't take it seriously.
Don't take it too seriously.
Now, later, after the CEO had spoken, L&T clarified Mr. Subrahmanyan's statement. And this is what L&T said. We believe this is India's decade, a time demanding collective dedication and effort to drive progress. Extraordinary outcomes require extraordinary effort.
Yeah.
Did India require people to work 90 hours a week?
So I think L&T is absolutely right. This is India's decade. It does require extraordinary effort, but I don't necessarily connect extraordinary effort with the number of hours a week that we work. I don't think that's a 1:1 comparison. We do need a lot of hard work. And if you look at the actual comment, what you read out, if the words I think were, if you want to be top of the world, the only comment I'd make is that you can't have 1.4 billion people wanting to be top of the world. You may need a few people who are really driven, who choose themselves individually. And the key thing is that they choose for themselves individually to work 90 hours or whatever they choose to work a week. But I don't think that's a reasonable expectation for a wider company, and certainly not for a wider society. I think it has to be left to the individual. And if SNS chooses to work 90 hours a week, that's his choice, and we should respect him for it. But I don't think it's fair to expect everyone across a company or a society to work in the same way.
Let me go one step further and ask you if there's a fallacy in this viewpoint. If people work 90 hours a week, which I said is 13 hours a day, including Sundays, and then on top of that, presumably they sleep for 7 hours, do they have time to shop, eat in restaurants, see movies, visit theme parks? And as a result, won't the entertainment and leisure industry suffer? And won't several services suffer badly as well?
So, I mean, yes, they would. But I think the argument would be that what SNS was speaking about in terms of nation building, I think he sort of doesn't see going to the movies as being part of that project. So, I think he has a point. He has a point. But I think we should see it as one individual, albeit a very important individual's perspective, and we should really respect individual choices more than anything else. Let me give you a counter example. I used to chat with someone who was an advisor of mine at university years ago, and then sort of remained a mentor for much of his life. And he was a person named Jim Adams, and he was very much of a creativity guru. And his field was sort of innovation and creativity. And Jim used to always make this argument that if you really want to have truly creative outcomes, you need dead time, because you need time to let ideas kind of stew in your brain. And as they stew in your brain, you end up coming up with better and better thoughts. And then you actually, very often, we do this ourselves. We go to sleep in the night with something going around in our heads. And we wake up in the morning and things sort of look clearer, and we seem to have a better sense of what we should actually go away and do. And I think that leisure time, that dead time, is very necessary to end up then having highly productive, great ideas.
It seems to me that there's a second assumption latent in what Mr. Subrahmanyan has said, that men don't need to help with the household chores and that they have no real role to play in bringing up their children. Because if a man works 90 hours a week, he has no time for either. Is that assumption correct?
Well, I don't think he said that.
No, but isn't that the assumption? But isn't that the assumption?
But I don't think he said that, because I think his words were, how long can I stare at my wife? How long can my wife stare at me? And everyone's forgotten that he added that second part to the sentence. So I think he was, again, I mean, don't take it, he meant it. I think he meant it lightly. I think if we attribute great seriousness, to this, or formal sort of that, hey, listen, this is a serious proposal that is being made for our consideration. I think that's going further than he intended.
But tell me, if someone does work 90 hours a week, which is 13 hours a day, including Sundays,
Yeah.
and sleeps for 7 hours, which most people do you have time to help your wife with the washing, the cooking, the cleaning? Do you have time to spend with your children to help bring them
I
up?
think
Because the assumption is that if 13 hours are taken up by office time, then your family will suffer.
I think the problem is deeper in India, which is that, we have many people who do not work 13 hours a day, who do not also help their spouses at home with the washing and the cooking and the housework. So I think the problem is much deeper and probably comes down to our own social practices, which need a lot of change and reform.
I take your point. If you don't anyway help your wife with the cooking and the cleaning, it hardly matters whether you're sitting at home or you're sitting in office.
Yeah. So if you're sitting and watching television or something like that, maybe you should, help out. And if you don't help out, then go to work.
Let's take up that other point that you raised about staring at your wife, because it's a critical point that Mr. Subrahmanyan made. He said, and I'm quoting him, "What do you do sitting at home? How long can you stare at your wife? How long can wives stare at their husbands?" And once again, the suggestion is that Sundays are an unnecessary waste of time. Do you agree that Sundays are a waste of time?
So first on the on the wife staring issue, I'm eminently disqualified to comment. But on the Sundays are a waste of time. I think Sundays are great. I mean, I think Sundays. I use Sundays as a time to recharge. Last week, for example, for me, from Monday to Saturday actually was really packed, and I really needed Sunday to recharge. And in fact, a friend of mine wanted to have lunch on Sunday, and I said, actually, no. Much as I'd like to see you, no, because I want a Sunday that is completely unscheduled, just to recharge. And I needed the Sunday to do just that. And I did recharge as a result, and that made yesterday and now today more productive.
Let me raise a point that Mr. Subrahmanyan did not raise, but it flows in a sense out of both what he's been saying and the point you just made. Do we need a 2-day weekend, or is 1 day off enough?
So, as a company, we've had a 2-day weekend now for 50 years, maybe a bit more actually. And when my father instituted the 2-day weekend, a lot of people said, look, work will suffer. We'll get that much less done. We used to otherwise earlier, as many companies did, we worked a 5.5-day week, half day on Saturdays. And when we actually went to the 5-day week, first of all, work didn't suffer. We got just as much done. The company continued to grow at just the same rate. And I don't think it takes longer and longer working hours to get more and more done. I think we have to worry about productivity on a per hour basis more than on a productivity as something that is per year for the individual. When they look, by the way, country by country at productivity data, they correct sometimes for the number of hours worked. And I believe I'm right in saying that if you compare the US and France, the US is more productive per worker than France. But once you correct for the number of hours worked, including vacation time, France moves up the scale and pretty well matches the US.
In other words, the fact that people take time off, as you said, to recharge, to refresh themselves, doesn't slow down their productivity.
Exactly.
So then let me ask you, how important is time off as an individual? How important is it for people to relax, to be able to put their cares and work aside? How important is it that you switch your mind off and do other things than just carry on working?
Look, each person is different. And I think for the great bulk of people in the world, it's very important to have time off. It's very important to have time off to recharge, to come back refreshed, etc. And I think for many people, it's very important to have time off to do the things that they really want to do that may not be work connected. Um, you know, the same Jim Adams and I, many years ago, had this thought of teaching a course at Stanford, which we were going to call Managing Real People. And the reason we were going to call it Managing Real People is because most courses in business schools are about managing Stanford students or Harvard students or IIT students. It's people who are sort of driven and motivated and so on. But for many people, they work to live. They're not living to work. And for many people, they work because they need to earn a living, and then they go out and they live in that sense. And we should respect that. We should respect the fact that for individuals, work is important, but it's not the only thing in their lives that's important. Their families are equally important. Their leisure is equally important. Their hobbies are equally important. And we should let them indulge in all of that because that's part of what it is to live a good life. I think it's an individual choice, and people should have the freedom to make those individual choices.
My last question, Mr. Forbes. The truth is, Mr. Subrahmanyan is neither the first person to have raised this line of thought, nor will he be the last. Elon Musk, Jack Ma, and our own Narayan Murthy have stressed the need to work long hours as well. Each of them has talked about the need to work over 70 hours. Are they all wrong and mistaken?
So I think if you look at Murthy's comment, you look at Mr. Narayan Murthy's comment, I think his comment was very focused on productivity, right? And it was really, and I think it raised the question of productivity and how we can be individually much more productive as a society. I think that general point, I fully agree with. I don't agree with the number of hours thing. I agree with the productivity thing because productivity is at the source of growth and development. That's how we will become a richer and more successful country. So how we can deliver productivity is what we should worry about. And I would suggest that we measure productivity on a per hour worked basis and not on a per person in the year basis.
Mr. Forbes, thank you very much indeed. And let me end by saying, I wish you a terrific weekend. Relax, take time off, and forget about work on the holiday. Take care.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.